Welcome, second graders. So we talked about abstract art last week, and we learned about how abstract art might use brighter or more flat colors. It might use more shapes and lines. It might not look exactly like real life, but it has its very own style and emotion, and it really focuses on the artistry of the work. So we're going to keep talking about abstract art today, and we're going to learn about a different kind of art, which is called molas, okay? So when we look at this picture of molas, what do you guys observe? Remember what I've taught you about when you're approaching a new work of art and you're looking at art for the first time that you haven't seen before. Ask yourself some questions about it. So let's look at this molas, which is these beautiful patterns and shapes and colors, and ask ourselves some questions. Okay, first of all, do we think that these molas are abstract or realistic art? You're right, they're abstract. Do we recognize any images, or are they so abstract that we can't recognize anything? As I'm looking around, I see a couple of birds that I can recognize as birds. One has a fish in its mouth. I recognize some flower shapes and some leaf shapes. And there's a shape near the woman's head that looks like a pear or some kind of fruit. Those are really the only things I can recognize. Otherwise, what I'm seeing are mostly patterns and shapes and colors. Do you guys recognize anything else? Are you seeing anything else? Okay, great. Now, let's see, are the colors bright or are they more muted or more subdued? Yeah, they're pretty bright. What else can we observe about this artwork? What do we think the material is? What's the medium? Is this a sculpture? Is it a painting? Do you have any guesses? Some of you may have guessed that this artwork is made from fabric or cloth or clothing, and you would be right. These are made from fabric and sewn pieces of art. Now remember that art can be expressed in lots of different ways. So here it happens to be fabric and clothing. It could be dance, it could be music, it could be sculptures. Art is more than just painting. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some of the key characteristics of molas. Okay, so they use geometric patterns. Geometric means shapes. Okay, so your squares, lines, circles, triangles. And pattern means that those things repeat. So one square by itself is not a geometric pattern, but if you did square, 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 square all in a row, that would be a pattern. If you did square, circle, square, circle, square, circle, repeating, that would also be a pattern. Molas use bright colors, okay? So the more bright and contrasting and exciting those colors are, the better. And they have in them oftentimes abstract animals. And so, again, animals that don't look realistic might not have colors like they do in real life. Their shapes might be simplified. Those are abstract. Okay, so a little bit of background information about molas. Again, it's fabric that's cut and sewn by the Kuna people. And the Kuna people live in the area that we call now Panama. So Panama is in Central America. Here's the American continent. Here's Salt Lake City about in the United States of America. Now right here in Central America, where the land gets really thin like this, is a country called Panama. That's the area. Mola means clothing. And so for these people, there's no really different word for the clothing that you wear every day in these beautiful works of art, because the people do wear these beautiful works of art. Geometric molas are the most traditional, and they developed because the Kuna people in the very, very olden days hardly wore any clothes. As you can imagine, islander people or people were in more tropical environments didn't have to wear very many clothing because it was nice and warm all the time. And so they would paint and tattoo their bodies to have these beautiful patterns and pictures all over them. As the people started to wear clothing more often and covering more of their body, they transferred those beautiful patterns and those beautiful traditions of these abstract animals and really neat geometric patterns and shapes onto their clothing so that they could still retain that tradition and that beautiful art culture that they had. So many hours of careful sewing are required to create a fine mola, and the ability to make an outstanding mola is a source of status among Kuna women. So the more beautiful and bright and artistic you could sew these clothing, sort of the more special that the society thought that you were. Let's just look at a few examples up close of molas and keep observing things, okay? One thing that I like about this mola is that the edges are all jagged like that, both here and here. I imagine that that took a lot of time and care to create. So these smaller lines you see here would be thread, different color thread, and then these larger areas would be fabric cut out and layered on top of each other. I also want you to notice that the background is full of shapes. There's hardly anywhere where the background is just plain. The background is full of these patterns. So here we see that the background is full of these little triangles with different colors inside of them. And of course, these animals are abstract, but they're detailed enough that we can tell what they are. We have a lobster, a fish, a turtle, and a crab. What do you guys think this is? I'm not 100% sure. Any ideas? Or this guy over here? Maybe he's the front, maybe that's the front of a snail. I'm not sure. One thing I do know is that the colors are very bright, and there's a lot of different colors all happening together. Here's a mola that is not an animal. Do you guys know what it is? Have a guess? Yeah, that's what I guessed too. I guessed apple. And I see 3 apples. I see in the background that this mola has been decorated with a pattern of thin lines in different colors. I see that inside of the apple they've used some leaf shapes and also just various abstract shapes. And again, the one thing I'm always noticing is that it's very full of pattern and the colors are very bright. Let's look at one more. What animals do you guys think that these are? Can you tell? I think they're some kind of bird. And if I had to guess, I might say flamingo, but I could be wrong about that. One thing that I like is how they've joined an adult bird, here's the head and the wing, right into what looks like a chick. And I like how it's symmetric right down the middle. And so the left side and the right side are just a reflection of each other. And again, I see the background here is decorated with triangles and some lines. And I like how the stitching creates a lot of detail that almost could look like feathers. And of course, big, beautiful, bright colors. All right, well, what do you think, kids? Aren't these molas really interesting and beautiful? I think so. And if you click on the next video, I'll walk you through a project where we can make our very own molas.